Congressional correspondent Stephanie Liebergen is here now with highlights from last night's big hearing. Good morning, Stephanie.
Well, last night was all about the timeline, and the committee used a number of pieces of information, timestamp things like text messages and phone calls, video and pictures, to try to piece together what exactly was happening on January 6th. But their timeline also included what was not available. There was a 3-hour gap in the White House logs, in the White House phone call logs, and the president's daily diary that includes no information about what former President Trump was doing from about 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. But according to multiple witnesses who spoke with the committee, the former president was sitting in the dining room in the West Wing watching the attack unfold on live TV. This morning, the January 6th Select Committee says it's continuing its investigation after wrapping up its last public hearing in this series. The main focus of this hearing, what was then President Donald Trump doing in the White House while hundreds of his supporters violently pushed past police to storm the Capitol.
President Trump did not fail to act during the 187 minutes between leaving the ellipse and telling the mob to go home. He chose not to act.
Lawmakers broke down minute by minute what happened during the 3 hours that they say former President Trump was derelict in his duties as the attack unfolded.
Rather than uphold his duty to the Constitution, President Trump allowed the mob to achieve the delay that he hoped would keep him in power.
The timeline began just after 1 p.m. Eastern. President Trump was wrapping up a speech at the ellipse during which he told the crowd to head to the Capitol. From there, the panel says the president retired to his dining room for hours. He watched coverage of the attack on Fox News. He made phone calls to senators to try and delay the certification of the 2020 election. But he made no real effort to end the violence, even at the expense of his own vice president.
And I've seen the impact that his words have on his supporters. They truly latch on to every word and every tweet that he says. And so I think that in that moment, for him to tweet out the message about Mike Pence, it was him pouring gasoline on the fire.
Testimony from former White House Deputy Press Secretary Sarah Matthews and former Deputy National Security Advisor Matthew Pottinger helped weave the extensive timeline together, and further illustrated by new interviews and a never-before-seen photo and video evidence.
Hold! They can't use the building! Hold!
Turn that door up. We're moving. We need to move now.
Stop me!
The members of the BPT tell at this time were starting to fear for their own lives. There was a lot of yelling, a lot of very personal calls over the radio. So it was disturbing.
Some of the most compelling footage was outtakes from Trump's address to the nation the day after the insurrection.
To those who broke the law, you will pay. You do not represent our movement. You do not represent our country. And if you broke the law, you can't say that. I'm not going. I already said you will pay.
As the committee prepares its final report on what happened that day, a promise from Representative Adam Kinzinger.
When we present our full findings, we will recommend changes to laws and policies to guard against another January 6th. The reason that's imperative is that the forces Donald Trump ignited that day have not gone away.
The hearing marked the 8th time the committee has met this year to present evidence surrounding the Capitol insurrection. The committee is planning to hold additional hearings in September. Now, the Vice Chair Liz Cheney at the end of the hearing specifically addressed some of the critics of the January 6th Select Committee, and she made the point that the case being made by these witnesses to the committee, these are not Trump's enemies. These are fellow Republicans, Trump supporters, members of his administration, members of his staff. It is not his political enemies who are coming out and presenting this picture of what happened on January 6th and in the days and weeks leading up to it. And she really was rejecting the idea that if there were more Republicans on the committee, that there would have been a harsher line of questioning or that the committee would have been presenting a different set of information.